Welcome to Creature Guide Live Daily News. I'm going to be going over for the first time different articles on prehistoric to current animal news. We're streaming on both Rumble, YouTube, and Kick. Let's dive back into the Mesozoic. And beforehand, please feel free to intervene and stick any comments about prehistoric to current animal life into the chat. Okay, so from Sci News, world's longest sauropod trackway found in France. Well, this is something we usually hear from different parts of the world, such as Australia, different areas of Argentina, and even Chile, or over in the Patagonian region of southern South America. They also do pop up over in East Africa, but not as common. Sometimes, also, if you're looking at South Africa, it tends to be prosauropod footprints or the ancestors of the sauropods. And also different trackways we find over in North America and specifically the United States when referring to sauropods. The trackway of a plant eating sauropod dinosaur has been excavated in the Jura Mountains, France. This 508-foot line or 155-meter line of footsteps is the longest known trackway of a sauropod. Well, this was at least a few years back, but I haven't heard of necessarily a larger track. Well, specifically in Europe. But, there might have been one recently over in Colorado, but it might have been somewhere between 3 to 400 feet or a bit over 100 meters. Wow, they clearly are sauropod tracks. Those are very wide impressions. Gosh, I wonder who specifically was creating this or what specific species. I think they also have it, bordered off slightly. Well, there's a close-up impression of one. I think you can even see where the thumb claw would be in this area. Oh, wait a second. Um, I wonder if that's the back of the foot, and this is towards the front, and the animal's walking forward in this direction. Let's see. So, the dinosaur track site is located less than a mile or 1 kilometer west of the village Plugne in the department of Ain, southern French Jura Mountains. It was discovered by members of the Société des Naturalistes de Oyonnax, a group of amateur geologists specializing in the Jurassic in 2009. So the geologists were looking for certain types of either dinosaurs, could have been different species of reptiles, or maybe even marine reptiles in the area, but from between 201 and 143 million years ago. So the 110 step trackway represents a new ichno species. Oh, Brontopodus plagnensis and extends over 508 feet. Wow. Not specifically the sauropod, but the footprints when it's mentioning the 508 feet. Let's bring up that specific creature. It sounds like well, I have heard of this specific genus, but haven't dived into it too much. I'm guessing it's a member of the Diplodocid family. So, Brontopodus. I mean, obviously, they're mixing it in with Diplodocus and Brontosaurus, so it's like they want a bit of American energy into this genus, like Jurassic American energy too. I mean, the Diplodocids first evolved over 170 million years ago during the Jurassic, and they would continue until the early late Cretaceous, about 90, somewhere between 90 to 93 million years ago. It's a bit of a mystery as to why they went extinct, but when they first popped up, they were one of the, I'd say, most unique lineages of dinosaur to have evolved at that time. Beforehand, for the most part, really, as you approach 180 million years ago, there's only different species of certain bipedal and quadrupedal prosauropod dinosaurs that had evolved, like different members of the Plateosaurini lineage.
I am not having luck finding this guy.
Are not any sauropods popping up in general?
Oh, sauropods are popping up, but the couple they have, the pictures are so small.
Oh, well, I was also wondering if maybe there were already certain others that,
It also isn't
um
some of them that I'm wondering if that's it. There's no name on them.
You can still bring it up. We've bumped into several pictures, or in many cases, there are several pictures posted on the internet, supposedly of a certain species of dinosaur. In this case, a long necked sauropod, and it turns out to be sometimes not even different species of sauropod, a completely different lineage of dinosaur altogether. Could be a member of the Ornithischian lineage, whereas the Diplodocids are members of the Saurischian lineage of dinosaurs. It could be him. That's not a bad. I mean, I think these are good
Wait a
representations.
minute, is this the new one?
Um,
Is this a not a new one?
somewhat. I mean, it was found in the past, what, eight? I say 8 years now.
Okay, so this definitely
That looks like a brachiosaur in the distance, which is certainly possible for France back in the late Jurassic, but possibly not at this point. It's though I don't recall.
there's a lot of footprints.
Yeah, I don't think they've told us the age of this creature. So if this was between 150 and 162 million years ago, certainly it's possible brachiosaurs could have inhabited the region, such as the Lusatitan. Hmm. I wonder if they're the same. It could be a different the ground or the sediment looks completely different, however. Um, also looks like it's more likely to
Oh, my
erode.
bad. It's Brontosaurus. No, wait. Eh,
It
hold on.
This is?
No, it's not. It's the correct one.
Okay, so it is the Brontopodus. That is quite interesting. So possibly he was just walking amongst a riverbed or a certain floodplain and left these well-preserved tracks. I mean, they are also related to the Titanosauridae lineage of sauropod dinosaurs, but they're of a different branch of macroninian sauropod dinosaurs. I'd say a bit more closely related to the Somphospondylii. Okay, so somebody else to bring up. You know what? Hmm. Let's bring up the Barosaurus. Barosaurus.
Okay, what's wrong with this guy's neck?
This is actually based on a reconstruction over at the American Museum of Natural History over in New York. So it's supposed to be representing an Allosaurus fragilis, possibly attacking a mother Barosaurus and her young. The youngster is also part of the display structure and the Allosaurus. But overall, I think it looks like a picture from the 19, possibly 80s. It is interesting. This is quite a robust reconstruction of Barosaurus. I'm not sure um, if this could be classified as Barosaurus. This is almost like too robust for Diplodocid in general. You do have more robust Diplodocid species, such as the Brontosaurus and Apatosaurus, compared to Diplodocus carnegi, for instance. But, unless there's been something that has been discovered, like, with the cervical vertebrae, for instance, or the neck vertebrae, I don't believe Barosaurus would have this robust of a neck. This is approaching certain species of brachiosaurs or certain species of titanosaurs when it comes to just the immense wide neck structure, also rather thin legs. Well, Barosaurus did have a very, at least when it came to the neck, almost skinny sort of a physique when it came to this lineage of Diplodocid. I'd say in sometimes or some instances even more so than Diplodocus. Barosaurus, however, was approaching around the same length, maybe around 90 feet or pushing over 31 meters, and probably weighed not much more than 15 to 18 tons. The tail on that depiction, however, seemed rather short and wide for a diplodocid. Usually, on the different species of diplodocids, even when you're looking at Brontosaurus and Apatosaurus, they're not very wide compared to certain other groups of sauropods. This is, I guess you could say, slightly more realistic for a Barosaurus, but it's possibly a little too much like a Diplodocus. It's I mean, Barosaurus is a close relative of Diplodocus, but I think it's just a little too identical. I do think, however, also, what is with the thumb claws? They're up in the air, like a dew claw of a certain carnivorous theropod dinosaur. Besides that, I mean, the toes on the hind feet, they look okay. The tail in general, also the osteoderms along its neck, back all the way to the end of the tail. This is a very diplodocid trait. So this is not something that you're going to find on really other lineages of dinosaurs, like the different species of horned dinosaurs, ceratopsians. It's there does seem to be evidence for certain lineages of the ornithopods or hadrosaurs to have contained this. In fact, let's bring up an animal that would have coexisted with Barosaurus, the Camptosaurus. So Camptosaurus. Yeah, so that is the Camptosaurus. It is interesting, like how much the physiology or the overall look of different species of ornithopods would change later on into the Cretaceous. And at this point, over in Wyoming, Colorado, you would have different species of smaller ornithopods like Camptosaurus, the Dryosaurus, Otheniliosaurs, inhabiting much of Western North America.
That guy's face is cracking me up.
Yeah, the different, open fern prairies of the time or, even different open woodlands, like, different types of conifer forests. And yes, the carnivorous theropod in the background, the Ceratosaurus, would likely have hunted, Camptosaurus younger sauropods. This depiction, in my opinion, is too, it's too evolved for a species of iguanodontid, but there's another problem being the fingers. Possibly with Camptosaurus, it might have contained this, but then again, it was probably already in a hoof-like structure containing all of the fingers, but, not spread out in this instance. So this is more of a trait that you would see in other lineages of the Ornithischian lineage of dinosaurs, which is what the ornithopods like Camptosaurus belong to, such as the ceratopsians like Triceratops, Centrosaurus, the different species of ankylosauromorphs like Euoplocephalus and Edmontonia, and even technically the Pachycephalosaurs.
There's an old face.
Oh, yeah. This is definitely a 1970s, 1960s depiction of a Camptosaurus. Very wide legs compared to its body size and oddly shaped fingers. So it might have been Camptosaurus that still contained those separate fingers, unlike its later descendants, such as um, Decododon, Iguanodon over in different parts of the United States and England or Europe in general, which would have that hoof sort of a reconstruction or just a hand build. And also at this point with the thumb claws, they're rather small in the ornithopod lineage, but they could still be used for defense against certain medium-sized or smaller species of predators. Camptosaurus for the time was technically a large species of ornithopod. It was reaching somewhere around 20 to 22 feet in length or pushing between 6 to 6.8 meters and probably weighed upwards of 2,000 pounds or pushing 950 kilograms. Okay, something else. Yeah, occasionally, for some reason, this depiction of a megalosaur will pop up, in a wide variety of,
It actually
um,
calls it a Camptosaurus too in the
yeah,
description.
um, you have different dinosaurs are searched up. But speaking of English dinosaurs, and I'm going to commemorate somebody. I know it's well because it's August. At some point in August, back I believe 1874, you had or Charles Darwin, the English naturalist, was studying many species of animals over on a summit over in Chile. So I just thought I'd commemorate his discoveries and accomplishments. So, um, yeah, this is also a really good reconstruction of Camptosaurus. They're giving the animal a very, I'd say, iguanodon sort of a build here. I mean, this everything about this creature it's much. This is completely the opposite of the usually more slender or gracile build that we see in many other depictions of Camptosaurus. It's almost as if maybe It's trying to reconstruct a distinct subspecies of Camptosaurus, which is certainly possible. I think it is very likely with a wide variety of different species of dinosaurs, probably all of them, that there were different subspecies, and pretty much in every single instance with a different subspecies of a certain type of animal, they have distinct builds. They also, in many cases, will have a distinct type of color pattern. The brain will be shaped slightly differently. Um, Also, usually a different type of feeding behavior too. They're usually able to breed with other subspecies, but it's just that even that distinct descendants that would evolve or come from those two distinct subspecies will possibly be its own thing. It's just a combination of the two.
Wait, is that like a liger?
No, 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 no. Tigers. That's a what? I think it's
A
a
tiger and a
male.
lion?
Well, I'm trying to no, I'm trying to remember, is it a female tiger and a male lion,
Oh, I don't
or a
remember.
male lion and a female tiger? Um, I think it might be a
Male lion, female tiger.
okay. So there's also this thing called a ligon, unless that's the opposite. But those are two completely different species. Um, that in many cases, when it comes to different species, even if they're belong to the same genus, is less likely for offspring, healthy offspring to occur than two different subspecies. Even though you can still have certain issues with two subspecies interbreeding, depending on like the subspecies. So, why was I mentioning that with Camptosaurus? Oh, because this is an extremely robust depiction, whereas the others tend to be much more gracile. So, quite odd. This is definitely a creature that seems like it would, at least let me rephrase that. You would assume that this animal against like an Allosaurus would have a much better or a much higher chance of surviving an attack, or a Ceratosaurus, for instance. The problem is that Camptosaurus does not have very large thumb spikes, unlike its later descendants of iguanodontids. Its tail could possibly produce some power, but even then, the theropods are very robust. I think you have several documentaries or even certain animated depictions of carnivores and herbivores where the theropod is usually just pushed over. And it's not even with dinosaurs, it can happen with different prehistoric mammal depictions. And there were still a number of cases where the theropod could absorb quite a bit of impact and take out the herbivore. Um, but I think the more slender gracile version of Camptosaurus would probably be better off, considering it could likely outrun many of the species of theropods in the region. So I think in this case, it's probably better for the Camptosaurus to evolve as being much more gracile, at least with certain
He
subspecies.
looks like Catch Me If You Can.
Yeah, he does. And Ceratosaurus was not necessarily slow either. Um, So, paleontologists from the Paleoenvironments at Paleobiosphere Research Unit at the Claude Bernard Lyon 1 University then confirmed that the Plagne trackway extends over 508 feet in length, or 155 meters, which makes this specimen the longest sauropod trackway currently known in the world, a few feet longer than the Middle Jurassic sauropod trackways from Galinha, Portugal. Not sure if I'm too even familiar with those specific footprints. The trackway is composed of 110 successive paces and is generally well preserved. The prints measure between 3.3 and 10 feet, or 1 to 3 meters in diameter. Wow, yeah, definitely a large sauropod in the region. Well, I mean, the Brontopodus. I think it's certainly possible for the footprints to be as wide as they're claiming, considering, I guess, just the enhanced depression when stepping into the mud. So the footprints reveal five elliptical toe marks, while the handprints are characterized by five circular finger marks arranged in an arc. That is very normal for a wide range of different species of sauropods having those distinct curved three toe claws. making this impression into the mud. And see, it said 5 elliptical toe marks. It's probably referring to those little, um, what, hinges or I might be using the incorrect term. Just those little depressions of the fingers that are being placed into the foot. It's just that sauropods tend to have feet that are also reconstructed a bit more like almost a zebra hoof to an extent than the different species of iguanodontid or ornithopod dinosaurs I was referring to, which have a dinosaur hoof or an ornithopod hoof, but it's much different and much less area or volume that's occurring for the overall um, foot size. They were made by a sauropod or long-necked dinosaur approximately 150 million years ago. Okay, so we're during the late Jurassic. This is likely a species of diplodocid. During the Tithonian, the latest stage of the late Jurassic epoch. So this would lead into the corresponding Cretaceous period. So paleogeographic reconstructions of Western Europe for this stage indicate an archipelago landscape where the emergent islands were occasionally connected during periods of relatively low sea level, which presumably allowed faunal expansion or migration. Yeah, wow. They're definitely making him look quite tremendous in this instance compared to the people, at least in overall height. But for, I mean, Diplodocid, yeah, I mean, he is quite tall here. It's possible he might have been this height, but usually with Diplodocids in general, I'm guessing that. Whoa, wait, hold on a second. Biometric analysis suggests the Plagnus sauropod was at least 115 feet or 35 meters long, weighed between 35 and 40 tons, and had an average stride of 9.2 feet or 2.8 meters, and traveled at a speed of 2.5 miles per hour or 4 kilometers per hour. I will say that
He's slow.
well, but before I get into the dinosaur locomotion or physiology, it's possible that there might be certain invalidity with how long this specific dinosaur is or even how much it weighed. However, if this is true, this is one of the largest species of sauropods to exist in Europe in general. This is immense. Now, granted, you also had much more land at the time that could be utilized by the different species of dinosaurs. But 35 to 40 tons is huge or is extremely heavy for really any species of diplodocid in general. Even the Brontosaurus and Apatosaurus on average did not reach this weight. They would approach it though, probably around 30 to 35 tons.
Wait, what were the heaviest?
Hold on a second. Supersaurus would like a word because that's a creature pushing over 130 feet or 38 to, or I'd say 40 meters.
What were the heaviest?
Those would be titanosaurs over in Argentina and Chile in South America during the early late Cretaceous. So that's approaching around, actually close to the same length as this Brontopodus. They were not diplodocids, however, but they're about 115 to 120 feet in length. They're pushing 35 to 36 meters. And weighed, if you're looking Argentinosaurus, 85 tons. So definitely smushing this creature in a fight. And yes, these animals, despite how heavy they were quite capable of actually um, utilizing quite a bit of motion in between fights. The largest sauropods likely had the ability to rear up on their hind legs and virtually like claw box each other. And the reason I say that is because they're using their thumb claws to injure each other, but as well as push each other over or essentially try to break one of the other's arms or neck. It was very violent for sauropods, despite their usually um, sort of just slow, lumbering nature to an extent. Sometimes they're depicted as being much more agile, which they could be in some instances.
So would it be like watching a fight in slow motion?
No, 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 no. I was just thinking about like when they're usually walking because they're trying to expend less energy, and especially during the dry season when there's less food available. They well depends if they've already reached a certain area where there's more food to be obtained, then they're not going to be as concerned as having to store food, for instance, or compete with each other for food. What was the other thing? You said slow motion. Oh, Yeah, when it came to fights, no, it would be quite instantaneous. And also, when it came to defending themselves against different species of theropod dinosaurs, the carnivores would have to be quite agile in not getting smushed just by the tail itself, or the animal rearing up on its hind legs and smushing them, possibly even kicking them. Sauropods were quite flexible and nimble, despite much earlier portrayals, or actually even certain current portrayals that make them too dumb and or inefficient when it comes to avoiding attacks from other carnivores. So this new trackway site, alongside other early Jurassic Swiss and French track sites yielding thousands of sauropod and theropod tracks, can be considered as being the largest dinosaur mega track site in Europe. Yeah, I think we know why. It's because it's from one of the largest dinosaurs to exist here. And that's it.
Oh.
Hmm. Let's see. Let's bring up the Miragaya. So Miragaii.
Wait, hold on. Tell me if is it a stegosaur?
Yeah.
It's Miragaia.
Oh, okay. It's one of those. This is actually a really good depiction of Miragaia. Wow. Chris did pretty well. I mean, it's definitely depicting Miragaia as having very suitable thagomizers for defense, because you have it where it has elongated thagomizers that are just simply acting as the plates for the or from the rest of its body. Like, specifically, you have it where the plate osteoderms are occurring from the back of the skull down to um just past the upper thighs. And it is interesting because you have a wide range of different species of closely related stegosaur species that consist of a similar type of arrangement with their specific plates and even thagomizer like or plate like thagomizers as well. Okay, this is even odder. This is from further back, and they're adding feathers to the back of the tail. This is quite astounding. It's from Hagni in 2013. Interesting. So this creature was inhabiting Portugal and Spain back in the late Jurassic, around 150 million years ago. So this creature was also an herbivore, feeding on different species of ferns, probably lower lying cycads and conifers at the time. Well, this is a bit of a different arrangement with the thagomizers toward the tail. They're approaching further up its caudal vertebrae or the tail vertebrae, which is very interesting. Usually there's many more of the erect thagomizer like plates further down the tail than in this depiction.
Oh, I like this.
Still good though. Just it getting some water. And it seems to be coexisting with a small
Is that a
species.
porcupine?
Oh, actually, that wasn't even hitting me at the moment. So they're giving it feathers in this instance too, and also even adding a shoulder thagomizer. I don't know if we have any evidence for Miragaia specifically having the shoulder spikes or shoulder thagomizers that you would find on other species of stegosaurs. And no, Stegosaurus itself, or the three species of Stegosaurus over North America, did not contain um, thagomizers along their shoulders or even along their upper thighs. The only thagomizers they had were those specific four spikes at the end of their tail. So this is more of a characteristic of other lineages of stegosaurs, more distantly related to stegosaurus. But the feathers on this creature, it is interesting. I wonder if we have discovered certain skin depictions that could possibly indicate certain stegosaurs like Miragaia have had feathers, because this is occurring a lot. And also, I truly wonder who the ornithopod is in the bottom of this picture, because it's obviously a distant relative of the different Ophthalmiosaurs and Drysaurs over in North America. So basically, at this point in the Jurassic, you had it where creatures such as Miragaia, Lucititan, The Allosaurus europus, even a certain species of Torvosaurus was dominating um, probably southern and central Europe at this point, but for certain, Spain and Portugal. And over in North America, you had Allosaurus fragilis, Camarasaurus diplodocus roaming the area, Brachiosaurus atrox, and the smaller species of ornithopods, even including the Camptosaurus.
Wait, do you recognize this?
Yeah, this is from Dinosaur Revolution. I will say that, so it's back in 2013. Honestly, a good show. There's also a shorter, there's a shorter representation of it called Dinotasia. It's narrated by a specific, um, I forgot the name of the German director and actor, but I think he did something for a penguin a little while back.
Eh,
Um,
eh,
well, he was also part of the Grizzly Man documentary. Like, he even said he didn't want to he would not release the footage, of, like, what happened to, Timothy and his girlfriend when they were fatally attacked by a brown bear over in the Kodiak Archipelago of Alaska. So which, yeah, I mean, I completely agree with him. So, what is it? Oh, okay. I think this might be from Path of Titans. The osteoderms also seem to be quite short here, towards the upper part of the body. This is pretty usual for the osteoderms to be much smaller and closer together too, along the neck and just behind the skull or the cervical vertebrae. So, this really isn't a bad reconstruction. It's also a bit more heavily built in this instance. Miragaia tends to be reconstructed as like having a very wide, um, rib cage, but very nimble legs. Though it also could be simply the angle. It's maybe it also varied depending on the subspecies or if there has been another species of Miragaia that existed and we just haven't discovered it yet.
well, there's no spikes on the side of this one.
No, most reconstructions of Miragaia don't usually show spikes extended from the upper shoulder blades. Okay, so this has it where you can clearly see the elongated osteoderms.
Is that a
Or
toy?
no, 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 it's a Path of Titans model.
Oh, okay. How about this?
Him too.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, for some reason, Miragaia has also one of the longest necks compared to its body size of any species of stegosaur. And it's a huge question as to why specifically the stegosaurs would have evolved very long necks similar to prosauropods, and you could say as well the sauropods themselves. There wasn't really another lineage of dinosaur that evolved this type of a trait. What is also interesting is that this is a member of the Ornithischian lineage of dinosaurs and not the Saurischians, which is what the prosauropods and sauropods belong to. It's just that it evolved this similar mutation. Okay, this is a very odd Miragaia. He is all over the place. I'd say that the most accurate part of him is probably the thagomizers along his tail, but there also seems to be a bit of a gap. And maybe slightly the osteoderms or the plates along his neck. Outside of that, everything else is very far off. Um,
Okay. I found someone that made a 3D model of it.
It shouldn't have teeth in the specific area that, we're seeing, or at least more scissor-like. Actually, you know what they remind me of almost, were triceratops teeth, which are very different from stegosaur teeth and hadrosaurs or even the ornithopods in general. So they would slid against each other when slightly chewing plant material. Well, this is actually not a bad clay model. It has it where the osteoderms are much closer
No,
together.
it's not clay. It's a 3D model.
Oh, oh,
Somebody
um,
printed it.
yeah, it's a really good model. It is very typical for different species of stegosaurs, including Stegosaurus itself, to have specifically 3 toes on their hind feet. Now, you could say, well, this isn't necessarily too common with, too uncommon with a wide variety of different species of dinosaurs. In fact, different lineages. You look at different species of sauropods, many will only have 3 toes. Different species of ornithischians or ornithopods, because Stegosaurus or Miragaia is also an ornithischian. Okay, the hadrosaurs basically would have 3 toes, but Stegosaurs in general just have very small feet compared to their body size, especially when looking at Stegosaurus itself, like Stegosaurus steniops, Stegosaurus ungulatus. I think that's simply what makes these creatures' feet quite strange. The front feet are somewhat similar to ceratopsian feet or animals like Triceratops or Protoceratops in the way that they're splayed out. However, the ceratopsians on average tend to have much wider feet compared to their body size, unlike the stegosaurs. And it was also due to paleontologists such as Othniel Charles Marsh, Edward Drinker Cope, that made the Stegosaur lineage, helped make the Stegosaur lineage so um, renowned because they helped describe and discover Stegosaurus steniops. This was back, I think, in the 1870s. Oh, I forgot. That was it. Okay, let's head forward to the Mesozoic era. Also, like and subscribe and put any comments into the chat. In fact, what do you find quite odd about this species of sauropod or the stegosaur? So, from Sci News, ancient mitochondrial, ugh, I can speak. Ancient mitochondrial DNA sheds light on evolutionary history of saber-toothed cats. An international team of researchers has used advanced DNA sequencing methods to retrieve and analyze mitochondrial genome data from two lineages of saber-toothed cats, Smilodon and Homotherium. Okay, this sounds very exciting. I was actually expecting maybe it was going to pop up like the American lion or Panthera atrox, but then it hit me. Those are not saber-tooths. None of the lions were. It's not necessarily that they had short canines or even today's lions, but I'd say a clouded leopard really approaches more of a saber tooth compared to any other species of medium or big sized cat or the other members of Panthera today, even though I believe the clouded leopard belongs to a completely, in fact, both clouded leopard species, I believe, belong to a completely different genre. So, published in the journal Current Biology, the results suggest that these iconic felids diverged from each other about 18 million years ago and shared a common ancestor with all living cat-like species about 20 million years ago. So, this is referring to their early evolution back in the Miocene epoch. Now, these two creatures will not evolve until virtually the early Pleistocene, or maybe at the end of the Pliocene epoch, but really it's about 2.53 million years ago that we start seeing Smilodon and Homotherium appear on the landscape. And there are also different species of Smilodon Homotherium. Okay, so this is supposed to be a model of Smilodon populator. So this was the South American species, the largest species of Smilodon to exist. Also larger than any of the Homotherium species. Despite it being a saber-toothed cat, this creature did not come into contact with any woolly mammoth populations. It was pretty much only restricted to South America. It might have come into contact with certain very southern populations of Colombian mammoths over in southern Mexico, but outside of that, it is simply restricted to Central and South America, or Central America being part of Northern and South America. It's very renowned from, well, not necessarily renowned, but it's been discovered over in different parts of Brazil, Argentina, Uruguay, and Peru. A bit, I think further north into even Panama. So it's quite crazy that in terms of their mitochondrial DNA or mtDNA, these two saber-toothed cats are more distant from each other than tigers are from house cats. Wow, yeah, that is actually quite astonishing. Jeez, said lead author Dr. Johanna Peichmans from the University of Potsdam in Germany. So, I think what is also quite interesting is that, like I mentioned, the clouded leopards earlier, which actually might be of the same genre, just two different species. They're very. I think one of them is more closely related to the tiger than it is to the other clouded leopard species, which is odd considering they're not too far from each other geographically either. But this seems to be a similar instance with these 2 saber-toothed cats. However, it's just mentioning Homotherium and Smilodon. It's not very specific in terms of the specific species because we're just talking about two general genre of the mycarodontid lineage of cats, or being the saber-tooth lineage in general. And no, the cave lion, the American lion, or Panthera atrox and Panthera spalea, were not members of the mycarodontid lineage or the saber-tooth lineage. They are both species of Panthera, so they're more closely related to tigers and lions than they are to the saber-toothed cats. So Dr. Heijmans and co-authors reconstructed the mitochondrial genomes from ancient DNA samples representing three Homotherium from Europe and North America and one specimen of Smilodon populator. It might be a specific species of Homotherium that I'm thinking of. So the Smilodon sample was collected in Chile and is dated to 11,335 years. Wow, that is recent. That's towards the very end of the Pleistocene, which was around 11,000 years ago. Wow. In fact, actually, in some instances, could be right afterwards. So the very early Holocene epoch.
I put into the chat, "What's your favorite large cat?" And Akita Bear said Saber-Tooth.
Um, well, problem is there were many saber tooths. I don't believe you're referring to the Marvel individual, which I don't think even has saber teeth anyway. He just has elongated canines, but I would not classify them as saber teeth. So it is a false fact. I was distraught when I was being told when I was younger, oh yeah, there's this Marvel character called Sabretooth. I'm literally imagining a saber-tooth cat. I'm like, wow, finally, there's um okay, there's some character like this. And I saw it and I just thought, um, what's with people in this um erect, blue, fluffy. Um,
What did you see?
no, it's just it wasn't like a cat in any way. He's just a hideous being.
Are you talking about Beast?
Yeah.
That's not Saber-Tooth.
Oh, I don't study those my Marvel characters. Anyway, unless it's DC, you're gonna pull a picture, aren't you? Okay, well, focusing on the Sabretooth. I thought somebody was going to say like Garfield or like when being funny. Let's see. So two Homotherium fossils were collected in northwest Canada. That's not too surprising. We find Homotherium fossils over in the Yukon. Um, Still, I can't say too much of a difference. I mean, what? I guess on the bright side, it's not some giant blue fluffy thing.
Right. Is it just me or does he look more like a vampire?
Yeah, he does. Well, it's closer at least. Anyway, the European Homotherium was recovered from the North Sea and is dated to 28,000 years. Okay, so this is definitely a bit, it's still late Pleistocene or late Ice Age, but it's definitely a difference in time. One of the Homotherium specimens under investigation is a unique fossil, a 28,000-year-old mandible recovered from the North Sea. This find was so special because Homotherium is generally believed to have gone extinct in Europe around 300,000 years ago. So this specimen is over 200,000 years younger than the next to youngest Homotherium found in Europe.
Okay, Akita Bear said, "I love Diego from Ice Age."
Yes, me too. And I was think slightly annoyed with the Smilodon that was introduced later on. I mean, honestly, the last two movies were not great, but it's just that you can't have a Nimravid Barbarophilus be with a Smilodon Fatalis. They are not closely related to each other. Let's see. I mean, he's technically very accurate for a Barbarophilus in general, though he might have an area of exposed gums, so the canines would remain, I guess I mean, somewhat moist and protected instead of being exposed to specifically fur. Let's see. I mean, but everything else with the creature. Oh, well, his nose obviously would be a bit different. It would probably resemble many cats of today, not have the distinct look that they gave this representation of Barbarophilis. I can't say much for possums. I would say this is a very large species of possum, but I mean, technically, we did have possums back in the Pleistocene epoch. However, Barbarophilis had already gone extinct. I mean, this animal was existing somewhere around 5 to 7 million years ago during the earlier Pliocene and into even the late Miocene epoch. So he did not coexist with any species of Smilodon or Homotherium. It's possible there might have been there definitely were different ground sloths over in South America existing.
Didn't you say he would have been too big to do that?
Well, let's say Sid is a Americanonyx. At least that's how we classify him. He'd be massive. I mean, he's pushing around 2,000 pounds or up to a ton. And
A-
Barbophilis is maybe 4 to 500 pounds or
Adrian Rojo is in the chat.
200 kilograms. Well, hello, fellow theropod. Let's see. Yeah, it's a funny picture. Also, you have it with the different species of saber-toothed cats, and this would likely occur for Diego or Barbarophilis in general, is that they could open their mouths over 125 degrees, I believe.
And he's eating dirt.
Well, I bet the fossils are grateful for that. So the new DNA evidence confirmed that this surprisingly young specimen did indeed belong to a Homotherium. The discovery suggests that the saber-toothed cats continue to live in Europe much more recently than paleontologists previously thought. Oh, here we go. Well, that's annoying. It gave the okay, North American Homotherium, North Sea Homotherium. They're just not putting in the species name, but they're referring to those specific creatures. So this is basically supposed to represent the family tree and their distinct branches and how distantly related they are to each other.
Why is
That's
it
a little
so
harder
blurry?
to interpret. Well, this is an odd sort of a depiction. Even for me, it's kind of
Blurry here
confusing.
too.
Yeah. But even then with the lines,
John Doe's in the chat.
well, hello, fellow Coelophycid. Oh, okay. Alice Sword, welcome. Is this supposed to be? I mean, I guess it could be a Smilodon populator. They're giving it very wide canines, and technically, they were still quite long compared to its skull size. Maybe not so much compared to Fatalis, but those might be a bit short. They're more on the lines with like Homotherium. They're also giving him like a weird sort of a leopard complexion. Smilodon populator also probably wasn't as furry as different species of Homotherium because they lived much further north in the extreme cold of Alaska, the Yukon, over in different parts of Europe, Asia. And Smilodon fatalis was probably slightly furrier than Smilodon populator because it would experience certain probably mild blizzards compared to further north, considering Smilodon fatalis was inhabiting different parts of southern Alberta, possibly even British Columbia at certain points. It's just we found in recent years evidence for Smilodon fatalis being over in southern Alberta and over in areas of Montana, Colorado, California, Texas, and even over into Florida. It's not even including its ancestor, Smilodon gracilis. Smilodon populator would emerge from Smilodon fatalis, but never went back to North America. Smilodon fatalis had the longest home range or the largest home range of any of the Smilodon species, so stretching from Alberta down to, I believe, Argentina. So it was nearly like the cougar in terms of its just overall home range of its day. Except you also had the Eurasian cougar over in Europe and Asia. It's also around the size of today's largest cougars. So pushing around 220 pounds or 100 kilograms, 110 kilograms. So mitochondrial DNA that we received from the North Sea Homotherium specimen confirms the late Pleistocene survival of this enigmatic saber-toothed cat in Eurasia. Much like Denisovan's hominins, the North Sea Homotherium represents another striking example of the major gaps in our knowledge of Pleistocene fauna composition on the Eurasian continent and holds important clues about population and extinction dynamics of Pleistocene species.
Akita Bear said peekaboo. I think it was a reference to
Ew,
John
Ice
Doe.
Age.
Yeah.
Yeah. Though I think it was Where's the Baby?
You want anybody?
Um, oh, okay. Homotherium. Bring up a Colombian mammoth.
You don't want to just bring up sabers?
Oh, well, yeah, we could. Let's bring up Smilodon himself. So Smilodon. I guess we could bring up like Fatalis. So Fata. Okay. I think it was odd in, or it's odd in the movie that they have it where the Neanderthal people, like the male or the father, seems pretty realistic, but the mother looks a little too human, unless she's supposed to be like some Denisovan. But then um, the child seemed a little too non-Neanderthal, like too, like I guess you could say, button or almost squished of a nose. There were also other things like the types of shelters that they were creating in the movie was not necessarily what Neanderthals would have made. Also, it takes place 20,000 years ago, and Neanderthals had already blended in with other human populations much earlier in time.
Okay, John Doe said, I know Smilodon was in North America, but I forgot the South American marsupial saber-toothed cousin.
Oh yeah, the Thylacosmilids. Well, also the Nimrovids, the like Barbarophilus. So, yeah, the Nimrovids, such as Barbarophilus, are quite distantly related to Smilodon and Homotherium. So are the Thylacosmilids. Say Nimrovids are closer to the Thylacosmilids. I would say that Barbarophilus has a closer overall build in some cases to Smilodon than it does maybe Homotherium or the Thylacosmilids, but it also kind of seems to be in par with like Amur tigers to an extent. Whereas Smilodon has immense shoulder blades, really the largest forearms, or I guess upper arms, compared to its body size, but really focusing on the forearm muscles and the bones, but compared to really any other species of big cat. So this animal was meant for truly hugging down, yeah, hugging down its prey, I guess you could say, but to death.
You did say hugging, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm trying to think of how else it's just more of like a fatal hug. But yeah, this is a really good painting from Charles R. Knight. What is this? Wow, was this all the way back in 1903? I thought it was actually much more recent. Like it was like 1940s or uh, like 19 even 50s. This is pretty good. It definitely shows how how far we are like paleontologists at the time were into just depicting different species of prehistoric mammals from the Pleistocene or the Ice Age, especially Smilodon. Even by today's standards, this is a really good reconstruction. It almost reminds me of that model from Prehistoric Predators, like a National Geographic documentary from the early 2010s or later early 2000s. I would actually say that a show that had a Smilodon model, but it resembled more of like a Barbarophilus was probably from or the Smilodon model in Prehistoric Park with Nigel Marvin, which I always found to be just a weird reconstruction of Smilodon. Like it's too round of a face. It's a very kind of long horizontal body and doesn't have like that erect upper body of
Spell that for me.
a Prehistoric Park.
No, Barbara
Uh,
Fields.
Barefelis. It's interesting. They ended the genus name with Felis, which is also the genus name for a certain species of small cat, especially over in Asia
But this isn't the cat, right?
Mm,
This is the marsupial, right?
yeah, that's the Nimravid. Actually, don't mind that depiction of Smilodon fatalis. The um, it's from the series or the show Walking with Beasts, which is connecting to the rest of the Walking with series. But that distinct depiction you don't ever see in the actual show, but it was put into the complete guide to prehistoric life. I think it looks good, but if it's for probably a younger Saber-Tooth and maybe one that's maybe not getting enough food,
John
or
Doe said Charles R. Knight was blind in one eye and very poor vision in his other, and made some amazing prehistoric paintings.
yeah, actually, um I don't think yeah, I don't think I knew that about, Charles R. Knight. Wow. Yeah, I mean, I think, many of his depictions are pretty good. I mean, even the different sauropod depictions, the different mammoths, he even I think there were certain depictions from the Eocene epoch, so you see different species of, like, herbivorous uintatheres or creatures related to the horned saber-tooth uintatheres, which are more closely related to the saber-toothed cats or the Machaerodontids than they are to probably like rhinos or even different species of hippos, despite how they look. Their saber teeth were probably used for intimidating other uintatheres and not so much really for killing anything. I mean, they probably could. Question is, why would they?
Why does this thing look part kangaroo?
Oh, whoa! What on earth? Yeah, he's got somewhat issues. At least, hmm. Yeah, it's because his main canines, because I think he has 2 sets here. Wait, no, he has, like, 3. Oh, no. They have it where there's a front canine protruding look, it looks separate, but then it looks like it's protruding through the jaw. Ouch.
What?
Yeah, that looks painful.
That's definitely AI.
Yeah, what on earth? His nose also seems a bit off. Um, yeah, his front teeth, really those canines. Besides that, um, he doesn't really look like a Barbarophilis, though, at all. Just more of like an odd depiction of some African species of saber tooth.
What is this?
Yeah, there we go. I mean, that is him.
His
Though it
legs aren't a little short.
well, I was going to say it almost looks like those paper plasters or
Paper mache.
yeah, that's they're used in certain areas like size comparison with people. But besides that, it's really not a bad Barbarophilis. I would say though, I think Diego's pigments from Ice Age just overall looks better, but this would definitely, benefit this species in a more, like, savanna type ecosystem. It would still be a different savanna compared to, like, sub-Saharan Africa. In fact, there's a wide range of different types of ecosystems throughout the earth. They're referred to as savannas, but they're not. They're completely different from what people tend to picture over in East Africa or Southern or West Africa in certain regions. Even Central Africa towards certain northern areas has savanna. It's not all like forest. This is not too far off, though. Barbarophilis was probably focusing on earlier species of hornless rhinos over in prehistoric or Pliocene, Nebraska, Kansas, Oklahoma during like the Pliocene about 5 million years ago. Horses would be, I mean, he could take them down, but it's just for how quick they were. It would probably be a bit of a challenge. I would say less so compared to creatures like Smilodon, considering Smilodon has some of the shortest hind limbs compared to his body size of any other lineage of big cat to exist or just members of Felidae in general. On the bright side, not just with Barbarophilis having longer legs compared to his body size, but the horses at this time did not have as long of legs compared to today's horses. I guess they were more in par with zebras, but zebras are not necessarily slow either. So, I mean, I'm probably not. the best to compare them with like an onager. Sometimes they're more reconstructed, like that of an onager as well. So, which is a Central Asian species of wild horse, but has a more donkey-like resemblance or build. Also, at the time, the horses still had 3 toes. Yeah, this is a very good reconstruction of just a Barbarophilus opening its mouth.
Well, I
You
was
just
doing it because of this.
oh yeah, that extended um chin, which is essentially what it is, consisted of the whole bottom jaw, at least towards the not necessarily the very front, but right behind the front incisors, which I find rather odd. They're not necessarily aligned with the teeth. In fact, the teeth are sticking out toward the front somewhat. And even the upper incisors, just before the upper canines, are not really, I guess you could say, like, connected to a major amount of bone. I mean, they are, but there's nothing really, backing them up. And yeah, that's a good look at the masseter and temporalis muscles, which would have helped, aid this animal when killing different species of rhinos and horses at this time. Trying to think of who else. This was around the time where you had different species of powerful terror birds existing, so it's likely now and then that Barbarophilus would have come into contact with these species, and I would say he would have to be careful depending on the terror bird he's confronting because they could also take him out. But if he were to surprise them, he could simply have some terror bird stew for your lunch.
There's an inside view. Like they cut it off right there.
Yeah, wow, and this is like from the 1980s or 1990s. Interesting. I wonder what documentary this came from. I'm guessing it was one of those short, glimpses of, like, an animation of a Barbarophilus, which is unfortunate, like, even for back then and, those documentaries. Or it's simply a snapshot of a Barbarophilus that they stuck in. Those are really annoying, like, you're hoping for at least a, uh, few-minute animation sequence of the creature, like hunting another animal.
Okay, last one.
I know they wouldn't have eaten stew, I should have just said munching on a, carcass. Hmm. The problem with this Barbophelus, it almost has like a more Homotherium like look to it. Also, the skull seems possibly a bit short, but maybe it's just simply how he's opening his jaw. But he doesn't have like that long, even somewhat shorter type of a Barbophelus look. Seems to be mixed with a Homotherium, and they're actually quite distantly related. They belong to two completely different lineages of Felidae. The Machaerodontids seem to have first evolved around 23 million years ago towards the early Miocene epoch. The Nimrovids had a much shorter period of time. They also wouldn't make it past about 4 to 5 million years ago during the Pliocene.
I just thought he looked wet and it's dry everywhere.
Oh, yeah. Well, it almost looks like they're depicting him over in the Andes Mountains of Chile or semi-arid region of Argentina. So kind of like where the pumas and the guanacos and vicuñas and viscacha lagomorphs are.
So is he getting misted on?
Probably, or it's some sort of a frost. I mean, in that case, he's over what 12 to 14,000 feet in the air, possibly higher in some cases, or pushing
Okay, you went
probably
back
like
to him.
4,000 meters at least. Oh yeah, I would say though, I think the canines are a little thin in this depiction, but I don't think it's. I think it's an overall good look. He just looks skinny, and should be a lot of muscle on a Smilodon. I mean, regardless of the species, even Smilodon gracilis. In fact, what this somewhat, I think, might be a bit closer to is maybe Machaerodus, but Machaerodus had much shorter canines compared to its body size and was also inhabiting the Pliocene, so over 2.6 million years ago. Wow. Well, this is definitely different.
Okay, I'm putting this guy up because he looks happy.
Yeah, he does. You know, he kind of looks like Tai Lung, and they mixed him with a saber tooth.
Whoa.
Snow leopards, what I'm trying to say. This seems a bit like actually, I think this is some museum. I don't know which specific one, but it's definitely depicting, the United States over 2 million years ago. I think there might be a pack of Smilodons taking down an early species of camel, but it could be a horse.
I thought it was a tree sloth.
No, 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 I meant
I
the
mean, not a tree
painting.
sloth, a ground sloth.
Well, right here, like the main stuffed animal. Yeah, that's a sloth. But a Smilodon taking even a pack of Smilodons taking on like a larger species of ground sloth, something like an Aramatherium or a Megatherium would be extremely risky, and they likely wouldn't have attacked a full grown individual of one of those species. Americanonyx, probably. A wide range, like even the Skylotherium, it's very possible. Oh, this is one of those instances where it's, made it out like they brought in different carcasses into a certain cave, which is certainly possible. Definitely making it very fluffy. Probably supposed to replicate one of the more, just further north populations, but maybe it could possibly be like a Rocky Mountain population, considering you had it where they were quite, fully developed at this point, like referring to the Rocky Mountain range over in Colorado, Wyoming, Montana. So you could have had certain Smilodon populations seeking refuge in caves. Interesting. So they stuck him with just some moose. Maybe it's supposed to represent like Cervalsis latrifons or Cervalsis scotti, the other two large moose species during the Pleistocene. Um, but modern moose don't seem to really evolve until somewhere around 150,000 years ago. They're being Alcis alcis, and we're probably too quick for Smilodon. And same thing for reindeer. Reindeer were probably, or Smilodon was probably not hunting reindeer, and they were occurring much further north. Reindeer have been around for 6 to 700,000 years. Done pretty well. This is an okay depiction. I mean, they're just having him stalk. I think his canines might be a little straight, however. But he is blending in with the grass in this instance. Maybe it's supposed to indicate like fall. He also was likely not hunting any species of rhino at or during the Ice Age in general, considering like Coelodontae, the Elasmotherium were inhabiting areas much further north. So this is probably a depiction from the La Brea tar pits over in California. I don't remember what specific artist made this one, but it's supposed to indicate or depict Smilodon in conflict with the dire wolves at this point, which are not the same species of wolf as the Canis lupus or today's gray wolf, but they are Scion, completely different genus. Probably around the same size as the largest gray wolves of today, pushing like 130 to 140 pounds, or probably approaching some around 60 to 65 kilograms. I don't think this is Smilodon because Smilodon is known as like the chinless saber-tooth. Could be Homotherium. Considering Homotherium has a slight bit more of a chin compared to any of the Smilodon species. Trying to think of who
I
else this
just
could be.
go off of what it says.
It could be Macaridus. It seems to have a much more Macaridus-like look to it. Also, much shorter canines, but I think Macaridus also had wider canines compared to its skull size. That's a bit of a question. Definitely a good-looking saber tooth in general. Also, the patterns and the pigment would likely benefit in ambush when going after smaller horses. Earlier representatives of Columbian mammoths, but Columbian mammoths, if this is Macaridus, they haven't evolved yet.
Did I put that up?
No. In fact, yeah, I haven't even seen this before. That's an interesting look. Very dark. Also tall Smilodon in this instance. Um, the canines seem almost in front of the chin, which is quite odd. Besides that, it's okay. They're also giving it like that tiger fluff or area of fur on both sides of the cheeks. Also smaller ears too. Actually, I'd say they're probably similar in size to today's lions and tigers. Smilodon did inhabit a bit of like a mild Well, if you're referring to cold, a somewhat mild area in the United States, but it would vary within the population. You had certain Smilodon populations inhabiting much colder regions than others. It's very similar with different subspecies of different animals today. Like there are certain subspecies of black bears inhabited very hot and dry regions of the United States or North America in general, like northern Mexico, Arizona, New Mexico, even like Southern California, West Texas. And then you have subspecies over in Alaska, the Yukon. So even though Smilodon didn't range as far north, this is the Smilodon I was referring to earlier from Prehistoric Park. It's just such a weird model. Even the arms are kind of skinny. They look a little too limited in, like, how they can grab a certain animal. Also, like, it would wrap its arms around the neck most likely. Now, they are going after a species of Ice Age herbivore from South America, being the Toxodon, which was one of the largest, semi-aquatic species of its kind at this time. In fact, it might have been Charles Darwin, um, though I might be mistaking it for another species that came across this species and was actually like shortly after it was discovered. Certain English scientists or paleontologists at the time were making very um, advanced, I'd say, theories on how this animal would have behaved and looked like. It's not like the depictions from back then, the early 19, actually, I don't think 1900s, the 1800s were very close to how we view Toxodon today. Yes, it is an herbivore. I believe it also had protruding canines as well. So it wasn't just the Uintatheres back in the Eocene epoch that had protruding canines. There were also creatures like Toxodon itself, and this creature probably weighed somewhere between 2 to 4,000 pounds, or pushing between 1 to 2 tons, or somewhere between 950 and probably 1,800 kilograms. But the Smilodons in this instance are too Barbophelus-like, also a little, like, too reconstructed like a lion. They're not very tall. I think, yeah, I said, like, skinny forms. Their nose is also a bit odd. Well, this is better. I think in some cases, it still has too much like a lion sort of a look, but looking at the overall fur texture, that's pretty realistic for a Smilodon. Also a very thin chin. Okay, yeah, so this is from Prehistoric Planet. It's really not a bad model, but I think there should probably be much longer gums in this instance being exposed for the canines. Smilodon populator's chin was not necessarily too much longer than Smilodon fatalis's.
Okay, last one.
Well, definitely too much like a lion sort of a skull. But also the hind limbs are a little too long compared to its body size. And they would be slightly shorter. It's probably why Smilodon in general couldn't run very fast. But it's also hunting prey that in many cases isn't too quick in general. What's interesting is that you had different species of giant camels in the Ice Age inhabiting the United States, like Titanops and was it Camelops. Camels today, like dromedary camels or the wild or domestic Bactrian camel species over in Asia, can't really run much faster than 20 to 23 miles per hour, or pushing somewhere around maybe 38 kilometers per hour, which is quite strange. You would assume for how nimble of a creature it is that it would be quite quick, and they're not. So, which is probably why it seems that Smilodon was feeding on different species of camel at the time, along with like younger Columbian mammoth or American mastodon individuals. Certain, trying to think of that other herbivore. Oh, well, different smaller ground sloth species, full grown adults too, in some cases, not just youngsters. There were also probably certain larger deer that Smilodon might have hunted, but they seem to occur in a lot of instances much further north. Any species of deer that seem to have coexisted with the larger Pleistocene mammals back in like certain areas of California tend to inhabit to much higher altitudes where it seems that it's possible the larger predators were not hanging out at. In fact, they were still being stalked by cougars at the time. So, mitochondrial DNA that we recovered from the North Sea Homotherium specimen confirms the late Pleistocene survival of this enigmatic saber-toothed cat in Eurasia, much like Denisovan hominids. The North Sea Homotherium represents another striking example of the major gaps in our knowledge of Pleistocene fauna composition on the Eurasian continent and holds important clues about population and extinct dynamics of Pleistocene species. We also found a deep divergence between Smilodon and Homotherium 18 million years, but limited diversity between the American and European Homotherium specimens. I guess I actually don't find that too surprising. Seems to be in a lot of instances that um,
They would
it's
have just
just,
crossed the land bridge.
yeah, and there wasn't a lot of change. Like, even when it came to the overall environment, the animals that they were hunting, like the climate in general, it just didn't have much of an impact on these species. The genetic data support the hypothesis that all late Pleistocene Homotherium should be considered a single species, Homotherium latidens, which was previously proposed based on morphological data. The study highlights the importance of combining morphological and genetic information for species identification. I think I'm going to have to go back to make sure that there hasn't been certain arguing over another supposed species of Homotherium, which is bound to occur in this instance. So, besides that, yeah, this was quite interesting. I guess not too surprising with like the limited amount of genetic difference in the two populations. Okay, so let's head over to the Cenozoic era. So, from theguardian.com, mule deer already using incomplete $20 million wildlife bridge in California. Sheesh. But still good to hear. Within the last few days, a camera trap caught images of three mule deer using structure for the first time. I guess they're testing the or um, taking a look at the foundation.
They're checking the structural integrity. That's funny.
I think they might be all bucks. So maybe they're just a bachelor herd of mule deer bucks, which is very common with mule deer, elk, moose, and whitetail deer in North America. The trio of mule deer have already scuttled across a not quite finished $20 million wildlife bridge in Siskiyou County, marking a triumph for the California Department of Transportation, Caltrans. The bridge, with its accompanying fencing over Route 97 in Siskiyou County, is the first wildlife crossing constructed over a major highway in California. The project promises to both improve driver safety and reduce mortality for migrating mule deer, elk, and other animal species. This is our first overcrossing laboratory in California, said Fraser Schilling, the director of the Road Ecology Center at the University of California, Davis. It gives us a structure to learn how to make them better. Within the last few days, a camera trap caught images of three mule deer using the structure for the first time. Yeah, I actually found that kind of surprising. Like, it's not finished and they've already got trail cameras over there, but I guess not too surprising. Huh. It actually doesn't seem that large, but, um, kinda wonder if the wall was the most expensive part. Interesting, that is a very forested area. It's not hitting me specifically where this is. It's probably approaching Northern California. While the contractor is still completing final touches, it's incredible to see wildlife already embracing the new structure, even with workers still in the area, Caltrans Districted 2 posted in a message to Facebook. In addition to deer, a bobcat, and other wildlife have also been spotted using it. The bridge itself is completed and ready to use. The only thing that remains is some final touches on the adjacent fencing, which is needed to funnel wildlife toward the crossing. Wildlife crossings by themselves do not stop roadkill, Schilling said in an interview. It's the fencing associated with them that stops roadkill.
I would think that it would stop the roadkill if they're walking over the top of it.
Yeah, but what fencing was my question. Uh, not
Because
sure.
wouldn't the fencing have to be like 14 feet high or something?
Yeah, I mean, whitetails. Whites. I'm not sure about moose. Moose can definitely jump like 6 to 6.5 foot fences, or 1.8 to 2 meter um, high fences, or whitetails. Some cases 8 feet, or pushing around like 2.3, 2.4 meters.
Oh, we've seen them jump that
Yeah, I mean, it is quite remarkable how graceful of a way they just.
right over the top.
Let's see. So it's a 2024 report by the Road Ecology Center that Schilling co-authored, called "Vehicle Crashes into Wildlife: A Damaging and Preventable Natural Disaster, Wreaking Havoc on Both Animals and Drivers." California drivers kill nearly 50,000 mule deer annually. Whoa! According to the report. Though, I think a better way to say it is that the mule deer are sort of causing the accidents. Some
They're not
cases.
following traffic laws.
Yeah, I mean, obviously they don't follow the same type of, I guess, migration that we tend to make. But yeah, it is interesting how after all these generations they haven't figured out how to wait. But it's also how fast is this vehicle moving, and can the deer get across? Also, how long has that road been there for? So that figure accounts for roughly 10% of the state's deer herd. Nearly, mule deer. Oh, geez, that wasn't hitting me. Mule deer. Yeah, that's a massive impact on the population. There's only like maybe 300,000 to 400,000 mule deer throughout the whole United States, and I guess including part of northern Mexico and southern Alberta and British Columbia,
That
possibly into Saskatchewan too,
that says 10% of the state's deer herd.
unless I'm mixing it up with a
They're
certain
killing
specific state.
10% of them a year.
Yeah.
Wouldn't they be wiping out the entire population after a few years?
Yeah, this is probably being very, exaggerated, and it's occurred before on certain, animal death claims. I need to review my, mule
Plus,
deer populations.
car insurance would be insane.
Oh, that too. Nearly 100 mountain lions die every year in car crashes. So, um,
What was that?
yeah, it's unfortunate. So, well, it's more of like, just honoring the, pumas. So the report also says, I mean, also, I feel bad for the, damaged cars. So the report also says, along with thousands of other animals from a wide array of species, the new crossing takes a step toward mitigating those preventable deaths. Some 50 deer and 16 elk died at the site of the crossing from 2015 to 2020. I don't know why, but I think I just find that funny now. More crossings are scheduled to open in the near future. The largest of them, the Wallace Annenberg Wildlife Crossing in Southern California, will become the world's largest after its scheduled opening at the end of the year. The bridge spans the breadth of the 10-lane 101 freeway. Schilling praised Caltrans for taking the bold step of using its own funds to implement the trailblazing crossing over Route 97 that will make the road safer while improving wildlife populations. Their heroics, Schilling said of the Caltrans staff. Within agencies like that, doing anything different means you've got big ovaries. What?
What?
Is this a California joke?
I guess.
Could have said antlers. Talking about deer. Or
Why would you say ovaries? Weird.
Okay, anyway. Um Yeah, I think it's just a California joke. So, we're gonna give everybody about a minute to put anything chat about prehistoric to current animals, and I think I might take my salute away from those cougars now.
Why?
Um, no, you know what? I'll keep it. Okay, thanks for joining. And from prehistoric to present, my name is Ethan. This is Creature Guy and Live Daily News. We're streaming on both Rumble, YouTube, and Kick. And remember that nothing is better than all animals all the time.